Hey, happy Halloween. Although I guess we are all too busy or not festive enough to be wearing costumes to this. But
I had whiskers earlier, but they were like getting really itchy and I peeled them off. But I had like these little stickers.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I'll put them back on later.
I feel like I need to do something. I'll put a sticker on my face. Yeah, no, it's been a very busy day. And I know Allie's still in a meeting. I guess full disclosure, I just took a 3-minute cold shower in between my last meeting and this, because I didn't get to it this morning after I unfortunately started. Why would you ever start work before, taking care of things like having a cup of coffee or taking a shower? But I think, we all in this industry, you're kind of, some days are just crazy and others you have a little more time. But thank you if you're joining us. Hey, David, thanks for joining. David's one of our wonderful speakers from OT SCADACon. So before we got on, we were just talking to Leah about OT SCADACon because I invited her to come and help us out with it. She's in San Antonio. We're in Houston. But what I didn't know, why don't you maybe tell us the news ourselves? Leah, do you want to give our guests an intro if they weren't here last year or the year before, to see you as our recurring resident expert on cybersecurity with Automation Ladies? Introduce yourself and tell us what you've been up to.
Yeah, so I'm Leah Dodson. I'm a cybersecurity specialist with NextLink Labs. I specialize a little bit more on the governance, risk, and compliance side. So all of the fun compliance checklist things, they're fun for me, less fun for other people. But I missed OT SCADACon this year because I had a baby in July. An awesome little boy. Love him to bits. But I'm excited that SCADACon seemed to have been awesome, and I'm excited to see it in future iterations.
We also have, I just threw up on the screen, Rafi and Michael, thanks for joining us. They also attended OT SCADACon. So I guess if you guys want to leave a quick review in the comments for those that may be asking about it, you're welcome to. No, I think you'll find, honestly, I'd say go find somebody that went and ask them. We did have on our exit surveys, so we didn't get a perfect score, of course not. It was our first time and we had no idea what we were doing, just like with this podcast, and a lot of other things we do. But we try to do them anyway, and then we learn, and then we try to do it better until we get too good at it, then we get bored, and then we go do something else. But in this case, we got, I think, a 9.7 out of 10 for our reviews, and at least one person said that they would not like to attend again. And we reached out to him and we asked why. And we thought he had really, really good insight and suggestions. And we invited him to be on our advisory board for programming for next year. And so he's coming, and he even said if his employer doesn't approve it, that he'll take some PTO. So, we're open to suggestion. But I honestly think, like you were saying, Leah, some of your favorite events are ones where the organizers do a good job of setting things up and setting the stage, but then letting people kind of, do their thing. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Like, I would like to do more of that. This, OT SCADACon was Allie's idea. It is her baby from the technical programming side of things. But from like the community side of things and the value that happens when the attendees work together rather than just us or even just the speakers, right? Because who can say that these speakers are the foremost experts and are better? They just happen to be the ones that A, know us, B, asked to be part of the program, C, were willing to invest the time or could. So it's not about necessarily learning something from a speaker that's the, authority. It's about hearing somebody else's experience, learning something from that, and then being able to potentially work with those people in the future. So, yeah, cool. Michael says, the smartest group of people I've ever been in a room with and very supportive of each other. So we, through Michael, were able to meet his CEO, Alex Poole, the owner. I'm not entirely sure what his position is at Mascal Technologies. Allie and I interviewed him recently, and we were really excited for that episode to come out because we loved it. And I think we committed on air to doing an AI panel with one of the engineers for Mascal. And that was just a really great conversation. And so the people that you meet, like the interactions that come after, are very cool. And then we're going to be meeting some people again at Automation Fair in a couple of weeks. So, Courtney, why don't you give us a little intro if there's anybody new that doesn't know you, and what are you up to? And I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks in Anaheim.
Yeah, I've been missing you. Can't wait to have you over for a few days. And like I jumped into small business ownership again. It's not new to me, but I'm always putting out some form of fire, and half of them are fires I started myself. And so it's just been a lot of running around in circles, but I'm still enjoying it. It gives me the flexibility I need to, problem solve at the hours I like to do it, and be mom at the hours I need to be mom. And I have no idea how I ran into you at Automate and did not notice that you were about to have a baby. Congratulations. How's it been so far?
Hectic.
You look well rested. You look a little too well rested, honestly.
Yeah,
you are glowing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Are you having another one? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
His stride. Oh boy. No. Yeah, he's hitting his stride sleeping at night, so I'm doing a little better now.
That's great.
Right on.
Yeah, very good. I would like to subscribe to whatever filter you've got going on, Leah.
Right. So I do have to admit that I'm using a guest studio space right now. It's not
so nice.
It's not my usual studio space, but it's very set up and I love it.
Yeah.
Is it like a space that you can kind of subscribe, like just go book time, or it's somebody else's that you just happen to be?
It's somebody else's. I just happen to be traveling right now, and they're way more decked out than I am. So
very nice. I've never actually recorded in a podcast studio.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never.
Yeah, I might have to get together a list of all of this equipment. And
I was just gonna ask
in the background. I was like, you are on brand for OT SCADACon. We have a couple more people. So Rafe says OT SCADACon was amazing. I traveled halfway around the world and would do it again. So he also brought the most amazing snacks from Pakistan for everybody that were perfect for happy hour. And I took the leftovers home and I'm like still eating them. Some of them are at my office. But yeah, so it gave me the idea. So we had this candy bar. And I did that for Alex Marcy mostly. I don't know why I like commit to things either on LinkedIn or live that were just spur of the moment off the top of my head. And then I end up trying to fulfill those things that I promise. I don't always manage to, and I was like, next year, why don't we do it to where everybody can bring candy from wherever they're from and like add it to the candy bar so we can all share with each other something that we brought. Because a lot of people, like even some of the attendees brought swag because they wanted for the swag table, like to add their company swag. And then people like exchanged each other's swag and stuff. So that was fun instead of it just being like the big sponsored brands that had their swag at the table. So that's really cool. But anyway, our topic of today is cybersecurity. It is it's the end of Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And what a month we have had. And Allie's not here yet, so I don't want to steal her thunder. Or Ashley, who basically, but here, I guess this all relates to OT SCADACon as well. So Ashley was our cybersecurity speaker at OT SCADACon. And I was just telling Leah that she did her dry run with me kind of late and her camera was off because she wasn't feeling well, or maybe the camera wasn't working. I don't remember. But I didn't really know her at all. She had connected with Allie and Allie invited her as a speaker. And I was a little skeptical, just because I wasn't getting a good feel for her as a speaker at all. And then I met her in person and her talk was amazing and she blew everybody away. And then we were like, now she has to be the go-to cybersecurity person for everybody in this room. Like everybody asked her questions. Everybody got her involved in their talks. She told some crazy stories of things that she's done. And we had a cybersecurity incident at PCE recently. And it's really good to have somebody like that on speed dial. Because like, Leah, I know that's not necessarily your side of the house to like what to do once you get hacked. You're on the governance side, you're in product development, all those sorts of things. So I had you on my, speed dial, but for very different things. And then Ashley, we just, it was rough. So PCE got hacked, one of our contractors' emails, and payment details were changed, but not through like a one-off email, but like a whole exchange that required multiple levels of approval. And that was still changed and then not caught until afterwards. And we had to, we called Ashley, and she, gave us some advice of what to do. And unfortunately, we thought that we had fixed it and gotten the money back from QuickBooks because they said so. We went down, the whole phone tree with both the bank and then the accounting software that was used to send the ACH. And they said that, we would be getting, or that they would be getting the money back. And then, follow up. It didn't come. Turns out they were like, oh, we made a mistake. You're not actually getting it back. So now we're looking at, I guess, the cybersecurity insurance claim and, filing all the reports and all those sorts of things. But it, this sort of stuff happens to people all of the time, or companies in our industry. And when we said that, the first people that we talked to, or, some of the people that got notified are some people like Alma, and, some of the people that we've worked with at OT SCADACON. And we've definitely heard like, oh, my company or a company I know lost way more than that, to something similar. Payment instructions being changed on invoices, all kinds of things. So Leah, you've been out there, going to conferences and things like that. Do you have any insight for us about the last year? Like, what are kind of the most common things that people are still grappling with, specifically kind of in the, our industry, if you have any examples?
So attacks are definitely up in manufacturing. I think one of the big avenues is vulnerabilities in supply chain. So exactly like you described, something that you may not necessarily have direct control over.
Yep.
But like you were saying, multiple levels of approval, scams in general are up right now. In fact, I had an incident recently where I got approached with a scam. Being in the industry, it was a little bit more apparent, but they did such a good job.
Yeah.
I got called from a number that was in an area I used to live, and they left me a voicemail. They said that they were with the sheriff's department and that I had a warrant out because I had missed jury duty. So, things like that, they try to go immediately for some kind of emotional response.
Okay.
Will get you making an emotional decision as opposed to a logical decision. So, you know, you get those little like feelings of maybe this is wrong, but you also get that emotional kick of like, what if it's not?
Yeah.
And so I did a couple things. I looked up the person online, and they used a real deputy's name.
Right.
And they were associated with the place that they said, that they were. And so I called not the number that they gave me, but the department itself. And there was the deputy was out. So I called the number that they gave me to see kind of what was going on. And they did a great job with the impersonation part. And that's what gets a lot of people, especially in manufacturing where there's a lot of connection
Yeah.
in the supply chain, a lot of people talking to a lot of people, and you just, you get that human connection. And there's a little bit of trust that's built through those things. So he gave me a badge number, obviously not a real badge number, but he was on the spot when I asked, was able to read off a number. And so he was very well prepped from that aspect. A couple of the tactics that he used are really common in scams. The sense of urgency
Yeah.
is a big one. So he was telling me, you can't get off the line because you'll be held in contempt of court if you get off the line. You can't go into your local sheriff's office because they will arrest you if you do,
What?
because this warrant is active. So like all of the normal avenues of verifying,
Yeah.
was very quick to like cut off.
Okay.
Don't do these things that you probably are naturally feeling like you should do.
Yeah.
Um, and so in the back of my mind as a cybersecurity person, like I see what you're doing here. and eventually was able to like, okay, I'm done with this conversation. So I hung up, called back the sheriff's office, and was like, told them somebody's impersonating your deputy. They were like, yeah, it's been happening quite a bit. And so that's one that's getting a lot more common. But those are the things that they like to prey off of, right?
Yeah.
That sense of urgency of you have to do this right now, or some terrible thing is going to happen. That emotional response of like somebody in your family is hurt, you need to send money to them. Oh, that was the other thing that they were telling me. The court was willing to get rid of the warrant if I paid the court fees, but there was only one specific way that I could do it.
Cash App.
Yeah. Really, the court? You're telling me the court?
The court uses Cash App,
Yeah.
huh?
So I actually, I had to deal with the court in California when I was living here in Houston, and so I was doing everything remotely. And then they said to put these documents in the Dropbox, and I was like looking for the link of the Dropbox, and I emailed, and I think I asked for it, and then they were like, "No, it's on the outside of the courthouse, the Dropbox." I was like, "Oh, I can't go there. Like, how can I get this to you?"
That's funny.
Yeah, those limiting things that are like you can only work within this system that really doesn't make sense.
No, but even then, like if it was a specific bizarre system, it would be a remnant of the old times, not a Cash App or a SoFi or a Bitcoin wallet, right? Like government is not that ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, and so those are some of the keys, like when you're looking for those red flags, things that are outside of an expected workflow.
Yeah.
Because most of us aren't well versed in workflows of things like government, how the courts work, but there are workflows that are familiar.
Yeah.
Right. And like you said, government just isn't, they're not going to be taking Bitcoin for things like that. Right. So identifying those red flags is pretty important. Yeah, there's just so much that has been happening on the attacker front with manufacturing that it really has become a big focus.
Yeah.
It has been increasing over the years, but in this last year, I think 75% increase in attacks is what some of the recent reports have been saying that are focused on manufacturing.
Yeah.
Increased look at vulnerabilities. So there's a lot of systems, IT systems that manufacturing has become pretty dependent on that are recently end of life or going to be end of life. And so known vulnerabilities in those systems, knowing that they're not going to be supported or they haven't been supported recently, makes them a big target. Things like Windows 10 is losing support next year. And a lot of manufacturing devices relying on Windows 10. That's big eyeballs there. So,
do you have like off the top of your head sort of the biggest things that people should be watching out for that might be being targeted right now? And then from a layman's perspective, like where's the best place to get information on what these happenings are? Because I feel like if you're in the industry, you can read all of this, right? But if you're coming from a non-cybersecurity background, then reading a lot of the incident like articles or the new papers that come out or the any of the standards, like it's a lot.
it is a lot, yeah. So CISA does a good job providing resources specifically for manufacturing. They do different reports, they do different frameworks. They make some resources available for small businesses within manufacturing that are more scaled down concepts that help businesses that maybe don't have the budget or the resources that some of the larger groups do. The FBI, so local field offices will a lot of times have resources like you can join InfraGard that will share across the industry different trends that are being seen. So if there's a common attack vector that different organizations have fallen prey to, they'll give advice then on how to protect against those.
Okay, I think I've seen some of the FBI notices when I've been Googling certain types of like scams or attacks or whatever. I think mostly scams. I Google scams sometimes. And a lot of times when some of these things come to me, I'm like, I clearly know this is a scam, but now I want to know more about it. Like, why is it here, or what is it trying to do, and is it common, or is it something novel? Hey, Allie.
Hello.
At least we got now 2 out of 4 with costumes, sort of. Happy Halloween.
Yeah.
Next year we have to do our Dia de los Muertos episode again, though. We have to do like a fireside chat with someone that honors that or has something to say about it, I guess. But yeah, we did get started with Leah. Ashley is here, sort of. She's having some trouble with her video and her audio. Right now,
with all of it.
With everything.
First it was audio, now it's video. So I'm not sure. I'll bring her on.
Yeah, I can talk about how I just got robbed of $30,000.
So I stole your thunder a little by mentioning it, but go ahead. Floor is yours.
I mean, whatever. Like, we were hacked. I have a domain, right? And we have emails for my company in that domain. And someone, obviously using VPN, was able to get, and I think this is, I migrated from Google Suite for biz. Like, I was using Google, not Microsoft. And Google doesn't automatically do the multi-factor authentication. So it actually isn't really in like any business's like best interest to even use Google. But I was doing that, and I think that's part of the issue was we didn't really have super secure passwords anyway because of the Gmail. And so I slowly added people, and we have had like phishing instances, like many, like everybody else has. And we catch them usually. They're kind of obvious, but like, yeah, it'll be me without my phone number or my email asking my people for shit that I'm not actually asking them for. And so this one was kind of sophisticated, and I hadn't seen this one before. When I talked to Ashley, she's like, yeah, we've seen that 1,000 times. And I'm like, that sucks. But basically it was ACH fraud. So they posed as someone else. No, they posed as someone we know and that we pay regularly.
Yep.
And, it looked like them. It actually was really good because they did hack their email. So and we can show because it's still owned by me. Like, all the email addresses are owned by me. So my guy, Albert is Courtney's husband.
Another OT SCADACon speaker.
He's my IT guy for my company because I don't have IT. Lots of controls people like to be their own IT. I'd rather kill myself. So I'm not going to be my own IT.
Same.
I don't even like, honestly, like, I think it's really funny because like we're supposed to be like computer people, right? Like, we're controls engineers, and like we must be like hacker galore. And like, that is not what all of us are. Some of us are really good at like IT, server management shit, networking. The rest of us have to learn how to do that crap. Because all we know how to do is like, how do we get the PLC to do the shit with the equipment? We don't care if that talks to some other machine because we just need the machine to physically do the thing. Eventually you have remote IO and you do need communications just for one process. But for the most part, that's not what we were taught how to do. So like, I know how to size pipes and pick a pump and pick a tank and like put it all together and give you a narrative and then tell a programmer, make it, when the tank level is this high, turn the valve off. And like, I'll say all the things to do, and like, we can do all that, but that doesn't mean that we know how to. For example, when I started SCADA, I was like, oh my God. Mostly because we were doing server management. Like, I'm using virtualization, first of all, because SCADA servers are done on virtual machines. I don't know why. I guess it's just like cheaper to do that. I don't know why the answer is not Docker or containers. I don't really know, but I know that what we've been doing for the past, I don't know, a while, is we've been putting these programs, right? They're just applications that we can buy from Ignition, Inductive Automation. We can buy it from Rockwell, Siemens, any of the actual PLC people can sell you their own software, or you can just buy one from a free agent like Inductive Automation, who has an amazing SCADA and more. That's actually not even SCADA. It's an IIoT platform. So it can connect way more than your SCADA, because you can do like ERP and warehouse management shit and put it all together into the giant data lake for the United whatever namespace crap. But like, you can't do that if you don't know anything about IT or computer programming. So that's where people are like, what is this IT OT convergence? That's not real. Oh, it's real. Like, there are mountains of IT people who can do real programming. By the way, what we do is not real programming. It never was. We grab in a block and like connecting lines to it. Like, that's not programming. That's just like, we're telling it what to do. But like C, plus, that's computer programming. Like, telling it in its own native language. We're using pictures. We're dragging pictures, like function blocks, or like we're dragging ideas and like connecting numbers and being like, okay, this channel means this pump. Like, and that's what we're doing. Like, and so all these IT people know how does a computer like run its own, how does it compile program, run the program? How do you make these decisions? We don't do that. I don't program inside of a controller how it makes, I just tell it when this is true. Like, it's just the logic. So we are only putting facts or logic gates that we come up with in our head in that paper or down. And then, but yeah, real programming is people that actually know what the computer's doing, and can make the computer do what you want it to do. And so that's real computer programming. And so we've never done real computer programming. We're still engineers, but we're not real programmers. And so that's why I've never felt bad. I'm like, yeah, I'm a programmer, but not a real one. Like, and I will always bow to real programmers, which are people that can program. I took AP computer science, and I think I did like one really cool HTML. Like,
we all did HTML back in the day.
Yeah. Well, and this one was like really hard for me, and I have a copy of it now because I was in like 10th grade or something, and I'm like, look at this.
My MySpace had HTML.
And then string and all this shit, and it was like super cool. But like outside of that, all I've ever done is like ladder logic is reading. Even though everyone gets mad at me and everyone gets mad at everybody, it's reading relay logic. The way relay logic, you would read it, that you're just making the PLC do the same thing, and you even show it the same way because it was meant, like Alan Bradley did this for maintenance people, not for electrical engineers. Maintenance people could read, if these contacts are open, latch in this relay, and they could just read all this relay logic. And so they're like, well, this is the easiest thing we could do is take this real relay logic and then shove it in the computer and then make them do the same exact thing. And then they won't be that confused. Because like now it's like a fake set of contacts from a relay turns on a fake actual coil, but it's still happening. The action's the same. Who made the call is a computer instead of a relay. So you use a lot less relays, but now you got to have a programmer. But it was easy because we just had to teach the programmers how to replicate their circuits. It's just circuit logic into a computer, and it looks just like the circuit logic. So you're like, oh shit, we can make computer programmers, not real ones, but like out of maintenance people. So you just have to know how to read a freaking.
It looks really similar to the schematic. Like if you go to the 24 volt section of the schematic and you see like your actual coils and contacts, it looks very similar to ladder logic in PLC land. And almost everybody's first crossover to structured text is like a gajillion if-then statements and nested if-then statements. And then you start learning like there's got to be a better way to write all these if-then statements, and then you start learning like the next steps from there.
Back to your IT guy. The reason you brought this up, the reason you have an IT guy is because he traced this hack back to a server in Germany, right?
The Netherlands. But
Netherlands. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Whatever. That was a VPN. It wasn't even someone in the Netherlands. It was
okay. So just somebody on a VPN has the email.
Yeah, it's probably someone I know. It's someone who knows me. I probably don't know them, but it's someone from LinkedIn who knows anything, and they came after us because I make it really obvious who does what in my company. So they just picked a list. Actually, I know Ashley's not on here, but I keep messing up. Ashley and Heather are not the same name, not even close.
No.
But yeah, I forgot where I was going with that. But I was asking her, I was like, what do I do? Or she's like, oh, I came up with this list of emails based. I don't remember what she even said. By the way, all those words all those acronyms are not real to me. And I'm just like, I just wave my hand around. And I'm like, yeah, they did the thing. Yeah, we can't hear you yet. We can see you though. Well, now we can't.
No.
Oh, we got
I'll
some
bring you
camera
back
action.
on once she has either audio or video.
Yeah.
That's a good point you make, though, Allie, about like information being out there. A lot of times, so attackers will find publicly available information like that and try and use it against you. And sometimes it requires a deeper dive, and sometimes it's pretty easy to find. But the key then being like the verification of this is publicly available. So is it actually coming from this person? Is it someone you could just call up and be like, hey, did you send me this email? Are you really asking me for payment? But yeah,
well, this was really good because it was like I owed this person a good amount of money. I was already late to pay them. And at some point within the past week, like month, let's say a month prior to me paying them wrong, they came and they were this was good. So they knew who would do that, who could do that for them. And I think you can just do that because once they were in his email, they could tell who, is that person because they've already had emails like, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you pay me here? So they figured out who in my company they need to ask to change their payment information. And they're like, I just need you to pay me here, which is a fake bank account where I'm going to steal all your shit. But I just need you to do that because I don't want to use this bank anymore, which was his Chase account. So I have a Chase account. They had a Chase account and we paid somebody at SoFi. By the way, whoever has my money, have fun. That is so much money to steal. Like you didn't work for it, but I guess you did a pretty good job. But yeah. And then actually they didn't know it was going to be such a huge payoff. I could have just been paying them like $200, but it was $30,000.
So Leah, like you're on the compliance side, and just to ask a question for people like me who are really honestly just figuring this stuff out within the last like 18 months. The acronyms are all kind of alphabet soup, and sometimes when I hear compliance, like as an engineer, a lot of times I'm thinking like product design, like the product has to comply with certain things. And now with cybersec, we're also talking about like companies complying with like how they store our information and what they could do with the information. So my understanding is like you're more on that side, right? Like with our information that's out there and how companies store it and treat it and everything.
Yep.
And training is the bottom line because if my people carried this out. Like no one held a gun to their head and said, "Give me the $30,000." We were tricked and we did it. Like we wanted to do this. We're like, okay, you want to put your money in a new bank account? Yay for you! Let's do it. And we didn't verify shit. And and then
so in the future, what is for like? Not that I'm seeking free advice here, like live on LinkedIn, but like in that kind of situation, a company has this happen. What are the steps that company takes in the future to not let this happen again?
So
It's,
the flag,
multiple stages of approval sounds like one.
No, anything related to money. It's just a flag. You just flag it. If someone was like, I need to be paid in a new place, that's a flag.
Seven levels of approval.
Money transfer. Yeah, if they want anything related to, because this guy gave us new bank information. He's like, and he asked nicely, he's like, is it time now? Can I give you that now? He was so freaking nice, or she was a really good hacker. Like they're like, oh, I have a new bank. I would like to change that. I mean, could I give you that information? When could I share that with you? He didn't just give it to, or she didn't just give it to us. They're like, asked us when we're ready to put the new information in, and we're like, okay.
Yeah, so this is a little different in there. It wasn't like, oh, I need to get paid today. You're already late. Like it was very much just a
that was really tricky
request, which is different.
Sometimes the urgency helps you find out what that that's the red flag is the urgency. Yeah. There was no urgency, so it was a really good hack.
Yeah, if you've ever have you seen the movie The Beekeeper? If you haven't,
No.
the opening section of that movie, they go through, and Ashley's shaking her head, so she knows.
Yeah.
They go through a very realistic depiction of that kind of attack where the target is getting somebody to willingly give over access to their things, access to their bank account, and the goal is to make it their idea, or like put the onus on them, so you're not out.
These people are psychologists too.
Exactly.
And that sucks, like hard. It sucks.
So that's the social engineering aspect, and I think we just got a comment saying the art of social engineering. But that's the social engineering aspect of it, right? Ways to manipulate people, because somebody could hack into your bank account and try and steal the money themselves and move everything.
But this is way better because you can't get it back.
Yeah,
right. They did it on purpose, and I actually tried to make my claim, and they're like, let's just say this a little bit different, because if you say it the way you're saying it, you ain't gonna get shit. Yeah, that's what happened. They're like,
Hi.
Yeah,
Yay.
I have sound and camera and audio and everything.
All of it together.
Look, you should have known when you invited me. Okay, I can't make things work. I can only break them. That's what I do. Like, you know, by trade, bro. I can only break the thing. So I broke it. I couldn't make the camera work. I couldn't make the audio work. So I'm on my phone. Apparently, that's how it works, because I tried 15 browsers and none of those want to work. So
Allie's on her phone half the time.
Yeah. Today I'm not, but almost always, because I give up. I'm like, no, this is fun.
And I don't get it. I tried to use this platform because for me, it's the only one I've never had issues with. Like, you just click the link and like go in. So every time someone has a StreamYard invite, I'm like, oh, great. I know what to do. Like when I'm flying United, I know what to do. Everything else, I'm like, oh, no, it's not going to work. Apparently.
Does your shirt say hacker?
It does say hacker, and it's actually literally written backwards, so that when I'm on camera, it's actually the correct way. But like if you look at it in real life, you're like, what is that? That's backwards. But no, it's designed to be on camera. This is my Halloween costume. But you know,
it's true in real life though.
Well, you know, I mean,
and I'm also an actual Mexican, so
right. I mean, you know, I literally at Costco earlier, I saw this lady, and she had on a gray T-shirt, and it says "Pretend that I'm a donkey," and I was like, yes, that is my level of dressing up this year, because like I'm actually not in my office right now, because my office is piled up with wedding stuff, and I can't get in there to do anything. So yeah, it's there's a little bit going on here, but yeah, like talking about the phishing stuff, it's funny because I actually was talking with a prospective client just last week. And we were talking about, you know, external assessment and everything. And they were like, you know, well, you know, we want to do social engineering. And I was like, look, here's my thing with social engineering. I usually don't do it. I was like, if you really, really want the service, I will do it. But typically I don't do it. And here's why. Because given enough time, I go on the assumption that given enough time, if somebody really wants to, they will have a successful phishing campaign. That's just the reality of it. It doesn't matter how much training you do. It doesn't matter how good your security mechanisms are, whether you have spam filtering, whether you have, you know, all of your DNS DMARC and all of that in place. Eventually, if they want to badly enough, they will have some kind of success. They'll figure out, you know, something about your company, whether it's based on social media, whether it's based on information that is publicly available on the internet, but they will gain success. So I'm not going to waste somebody's time, money, energy, and efforts to do a phishing campaign where in the reality of it, if I'm doing a 2-week assessment, I'm probably not going to have a lot of luck in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm doing a specific social engineering campaign where we're talking this is going to be a 3, 6, 9, or even 12-month engagement where periodically I am just, putting out these phishing emails, then yeah, I'm probably going to have success at some point, and all I need is one set of credentials. I don't need 50. I need one set of credentials, and it doesn't matter what the permissions are, because that one set of credentials is going to get me on the inside. From there, I can either install my tools and start to, propagate through, through C2, put in a back door so I don't lose that. Or I can just live off the land and start to pivot my way through. Eventually, I'm going to find something somewhere that I can either escalate my privileges or gain another account or create an account, that kind of thing. So that's why, when I look at social engineering
My hacker
campaigns,
was in there for weeks.
I just say again.
My hacker was in there for weeks.
Yeah.
Responding me like, hey, were you able to do anything about? And then Liza would be like, oh, sorry, like I still have a open claim with QuickBooks because we can't fix your bank account yet. Like, just really nice, slow, like
Yep.
Yeah, and you were most likely not their only target during that time.
Yep.
They most likely had multiple people on the line, and so they can be patient, right? They've got fires going
30
everywhere.
grand, I would be patient.
Right, exactly. And when you're talking, over the grand scheme of things, the kind of sad reality of it is that 30 grand that's a minimal amount of money for them. Most of the time when you're looking at these, these large APTs, these other things, they're installing ransomware and they're asking for millions upon millions of dollars. If you look at one individual group and you look at the millions, yeah, I mean, sure.
What Dogecoin?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're essentially winning the lottery with every single one of these attacks.
And you can get paid out multiple times. So you get paid the ransomware, you could do double encryption, but then you also get paid for the data that you're stealing, right?
Yep.
Selling the data. That's a
Oh
lot
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's really what they're doing now is, they'll steal the data, they'll ransom you, you pay the ransom. That's no guarantee that they're not going to go ahead and sell that stuff, and they're going ahead and selling it. And they're selling it for the same price to multiple people. You go anywhere on the dark web, it's, it's 1,000, 100,000 Bitcoin to get this database, and they're not doing that once, twice, they're doing it hundreds of times.
And if you don't make sure that you've gotten them actually out of the system, they could sit there for another year or so and keep quietly collecting data during that time and then hit you again. And it'll feel like a separate attack when really it's all connected.
And some of these are like teenagers, and we have such incredible like Kali, what is it? Yeah. The Kalilytics, like tools. All the tools are free for all the. If you have any ambition at all, at intelligence at all, at all, and you're like a kid, you could take banks down. You just could get busted and then go to jail. But like the ability to hack and whether or not you get busted are not the same thing, right? So you don't have to be a genius kid.
Yeah,
you just have to be like pretty smart, and that's it.
There's an industry term, script kiddies.
Script kiddies.
Yeah. So the low-hanging fruit, the easy attacks that you can buy attacks. You can use tools that are readily available.
And just run the scripts
out there.
Yeah.
Stupid people like me, just kidding.
Yeah, so the idea is when you're looking from the protection standpoint of being able to protect against those low-level things, the script kiddie attacks, and then elevating your protections from there, like if someone were more motivated or had better skill, then what would they pivot from there and do? And from a protection standpoint, that's where you really start, like, let's flesh out. And of course, Courtney, you mentioned the GRC compliance side. That's where you marry the two concepts, right? So protection from the technical standpoint and then protection from the policy. We're going to say that we're doing X, Y, and Z. Let's make sure that we're actually doing it from a technical standpoint.
Audit, yeah.
Yep. And then let's test it. So keeping that ball rolling so that there's those connections across your protections constantly going.
Yeah.
I've done work for companies now that are SOC 2 compliant, and what an adventure that is. But it really actually started making me think about, like, how well do I vet people that I do business with now that this company is like putting me through this ringer? Because I do want to make money and I will submit all of these things you're asking for. But, you know, like, I've been background checked and, you know, stuff I you know, as a, you know, subcontractor and stuff I haven't previously had to do before. But now all of a sudden, like 2-3 clients in a row have had me like doing a laundry list of things I've never had to do before. I think it makes, you know, Ali has said before with other difficult customers, like, hey, they're making me a better company, you know, by making me kind of dig deep and change some things that are kind of painful.
But yeah, what can the small, because this all sounds, you know, like it just kind of adds a lot of cost to doing business, right? To have to add this to your toolbox, to have to add this to your things to worry about, to think about, to plan for, to spend money on, right? To invest in.
Yeah, cybersec insurance is kind of new for me.
Yeah, mine was $4,000 a year. Is $4,000 a year. That's for a $3 million.
Not that high.
That's a $3 million policy, and like
Okay.
most places, that's too small.
Yeah.
Like a $3 million is a little policy.
Yeah. It's becoming a really big thing now, those questionnaires, Courtney, like you were mentioning, filling out what your policies are, what you're doing, what certifications you might have. It is becoming a lot. There are some techniques that we talk to people about, like the idea of building a trust center. But it all takes overhead, right? The idea being that you have to look at it as an investment in your future work, because having those assurances will make more companies happy with working with you. If you're looking at things like getting into government contracts, those are required, and you can't do business in that without having, you know, those assurances in place. So yeah, it's maybe a heavy lift to go from zero to hero, but it's one that pays off.
I'm curious how realistic it is to fathom something like, you know, to be you know, working with, you know, many companies are going to require this now. And I see just even more in the future, but like the equivalent of TSA pre-check, where, you know, like I'm in a system where I'm pre-vetted for everybody. So I don't have to do this every single time I take on a new SOC 2 compliant customer, because I'm fine, you know, with the fact that this vetting needs to happen. You know, it's, you know, all of us can't afford
Oil and gas does it in like their safety. So like everyone has to like register their safety, whatever. So this is kind of the same thing. It's just like your cyber safety score as a company. And if you've been hacked a million times, then your score sucks. Like, because your people don't get
John's number for cybersec.
Yeah, it's like you get hacked all the time. Your people don't know what phishing is, and like you're at risk because of it.
Yeah,
like a new credit score.
Yeah, yes. We need more ways to limit us, but we need credit scores for our cyber credit.
It's funny that you guys bring this up, because I had I had a concept and an idea about that about, I don't know, probably like 5 to 10 years ago. I was like, I gotta go through all of this stuff to like, buy a house and everything and stuff like that. But we don't go through that with like cybersecurity, we're just like, you have these checklists. And then especially when you're talking like OT or critical infrastructure, if you think about it, really, there's only one sector right now that truly has any kind of real regulatory standards or regulatory compliance, and that's energy. You've got NERC SIP. Oil and gas, you know what audits I had to go through when I did oil and gas? SOX. That was it. It's a financial thing. Has nothing to, the auditors came in, they were like, do you have a firewall? I was like, yep. And they were like, do you have a firewall between the internal and your OT? Yep, I sure do. One firewall. Everything else And the SCADA is on just one flat VRF. Everything can talk to everything. Don't look over here. No problem. No worries over here. This is terrible. We know it. But you're not making us do anything about it, so we're not going to do anything about it. And it was that way until we were purchased by a larger entity that came in and was like, "Y'all, no, you can't do that." And I was like, "I've been saying that," but they didn't want to do anything about it, And we had to make changes then, and we had to put in our network segmentation and all of that. But because there was no standard making us do it, nobody's going to do it. Cybersecurity, while it's probably the most important thing for your business to actually, be sustainable and be able to continue to make that money, nobody wants to actually do it unless they're forced to. It's a voluntary basis. We're going to do the least amount we can because cybersecurity doesn't make money.
It's like quality assurance. It never makes money. It only costs money.
Exactly. And we don't for some reason in the business world, we don't have that mentality. You got to spend money to make money. Do I want to spend money on advertising? No, I really don't. But if I don't spend money on advertising, then nobody knows who I am, and then I'm not getting any customers. And it's the same with cybersecurity. You have to spend the money to keep yourself and keep your products secure. Otherwise, you're going to lose that reputation. You're going to spend way more on an
lose
incident.
the money and shut down.
Yeah, exactly.
I just lost 30 grand. That sucks, but people can lose more. And so, yeah, you can choose to not protect yourself, but you will find it worth the money once you're robbed, like I just was, because now it's worth 30 grand.
Yeah, especially if you have something like a production line that gets shut down, then you're losing daily. Yeah, and it becomes exactly. And compliance gets a bad rap, and I get why, but it really, like Ashley was saying, it's a motivator, right? If companies aren't going to do something, then compliance will help move that along. And compliance doesn't always equal exact security, but it gets people thinking that way, right? If we start doing this, then we'll be better. And then how can we make that better from there?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that when I look at major incidents, talking, Colonial Pipeline, Black Energy, even if you really look at Stuxnet, these are not crazy, sophisticated attacks. They're not like
the movies, just the easy shit. And
it really is. Colonial. If you look at Colonial Pipeline, it was an account that that the person no longer worked there, should have been why can I not think of the word?
Deleted, removed?
Yeah, deleted, yeah.
Deactivated.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah.
It should have been deactivated, but it wasn't. And they just happened to find this and come across it, and clearly they were not. I think the password or something like that had gotten caught in some kind of other leak or breach or something, and so they had the username and password, and so they just logged in, and then they just started pivoting through, and most of this ransomware, it's a worm, so all they need to do is get it on one computer. It'll propagate itself across the network, and that's it. And fortunately, they had a process to shut down OT so that it didn't have a chance to propagate there, but you're still shutting down OT, so it doesn't matter whether it is an internal attack or whether it's directly directed at OT. Ultimately, the same end goal happened. You shut down OT. It was shut down for 3 days. Gas on the East Coast went up to $9 a gallon. People were panicking. People were putting gas in trash bags and stuff. Like, you created panic, and that was only 3 days. And then luckily also they had backups, because even though they paid the ransom, they got the decryption key. The decryption key worked so slowly that they had to restore everything from backups anyways. So, it's not this crazy stuff. It is that low hanging fruit. It is going back to the basics. Don't keep default passwords. make
Multi-factor
secure
authentication.
passwords. Literally as part of, as part of my, our company, I provide a password management system for everybody, and you can put all of your passwords in there. So there's really no reason for you to not create a secure password, because you have that to do. And I think that, more companies should do that. And honestly, it's really not, it's not that expensive. I think it's like $100 a year, and I have unlimited users, and I can provide
Yeah,
that
we
to
have a
people.
password vault now.
Yeah, exactly. But it's little things like that we just have gotten so far away from, because we're like, oh, we need AI powered IDS to do this stuff. And I'm like, you can't change a password. You don't need AI anything. But we think we need this advanced technology when really we need basic stuff that,
Yeah, we need to start at square one, which we're not even meeting those requirements. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we're actually coming up close on time, and I know it's Halloween, so we all got, fun things to do.
candy to eat, stomach aches to have.
And something that you said at your talk at OT SCADACon, Ashley, something about there being two types of companies, the ones that have been hacked and the ones that haven't been hacked yet, or something to that effect, right?
Yep.
So assume that you will get hacked one way or another.
I'm already there. Woo!
What are, just like you just said, the password manager, right? Something like a Bitwarden, or I don't know what, recommendations would be for something like that. But what are some of your top takeaways that if somebody watched this, that the next time they feel that they can have a conversation with someone about cybersecurity, and you should do that really soon, including with people on LinkedIn.
With your
talk
IT
about
guy.
it.
You better have an IT guy or woman.
What are some of the top low-hanging fruit things that people can do to either protect themselves or to make sure that when the time comes, you're in a position not to be completely effed if you do get.
Don't use Google.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, passwords. That's a huge thing.
Get a password vault.
Yeah, using a password vault. I mean,
Because you won't ever know those passwords. There's like XYG, blah, 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 700 letters long. You just save it in there. You're like, I don't know what the password is. Nobody does.
Yep.
Except the password vault.
Absolutely. Making sure that you're not using default passwords. When you set up, any kind of new infrastructure, something like that, immediately change that default password. That's really important in OT, because a lot of those devices, they're admin. I'll guess that all day long, every single day.
Mm-hmm.
When you are storing documents and things like that, make backups. Make offline backups. Get a small 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, 5 terabyte hard drive that you can plug in and put all the files on there, and then unplug it. Don't have it connected to the internet, none of those types of things. But keep those files, because if something happens and your files are gone, you have to restore some way. And then make sure you're doing those backups on a regular basis, whether it be weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, in some sort of frequency, so that you have that data. And then the final thing is I always say, trust but verify. I'm gonna trust, but I'm also gonna verify. I'm gonna make sure that you are who you say you are, that you are authorized to do whatever you're saying you're authorized to do, and have those different things, and have those processes in place, and that make sure that everybody is following those processes. Test your employees. Just pull them aside, call them up, and say, hey, if this happens, do you know what to do? If this happens, do you know what to do? Because that's the other thing, is we write policies and we write procedures, but then we never test them. I can't tell you how many companies I've gone into, and I'm like, do you have an incident response plan? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, cool. Do your employees know about it? And they're like, maybe. I'm like, have you ever tested it? Have you ever done an exercise? Well, no, we just wrote it down. It's going to work, right? No, you don't know that, because people don't know what to do, and people panic. And so, those are some of the biggest things that you can do.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
a lot of times we'll see people that like, oh, we used a template incident response plan, nothing specific to our environment, nothing specific to the people that are here, or we haven't updated it in 15 years. Person XYZ doesn't even work here anymore. So, like making sure those things are applicable to you.
So Leah, what would be your top tips of any?
Yeah, I really from a governance standpoint, I really think that knowing what to do when something happens is a big one. So like Ashley was saying, it's not if but when.
Yeah.
So planning for that, knowing who do we call if something happens on a weekend, if something happens over a holiday, are the people who we'd expect to be there, are they going to be available to be there? Do they know that this is, something we're looking to them for? If we need outside help, do we know who we would call? If we need to get like the FBI involved, if it's that big of a deal, do we know how to contact our local field office? Having those things thought of and put into a plan and scaling that back a little bit, looking at the risk in your environment, just sitting down and having a conversation of like, what could happen? And involving people throughout the organization. So just because someone's not an IT person, like Ali was talking about,
Yeah.
you don't need to be an IT person to think of risks that could happen within your environment. You could be somebody on the shop floor that's like, hey, we leave these ports open all the time and people are constantly walking around. Maybe someone we don't know comes in and just plugs something in. That could be a risk. And that's worth having the conversation, that you don't have to be a cyber person or an IT person to even start thinking that way.
Well, it's kind of that goes with like the culture. Some companies are open to employee feedback and like continuous improvement, and they want people to be on the lookout for problems that can be solved, things that can be done better. Like add cybersecurity to that kind of process that you have of getting input from everywhere in your company, possibly, if you're not already. And if you're not the kind of company that asks input from your employees on anything, then I guess you could get hacked, and I don't care. But
Well, and like you're
we
gonna
have a
get
few
hacked,
great
so
moments
you can get
in-
ready.
yeah, I want to throw up.
There's no too small. I'm not a very big company, and I already lost 30 grand. So
Scott says, retrain your brain to use passphrases. Short sentences are easier for your brain to remember.
Yep.
I guess
My
that's not,
husband does that.
that can't be in lieu
Entire
of
phrases.
passwords, though, because usually passwords do require like all these different types of characters and stuff, right? So passphrases
it could be
maybe
both.
have
Like you could say a
different
word.
constraints.
What I've done before is I had a passphrase, and I would alternate the capital for every other first letter, and so I would say that passphrase to me, and I'm just writing down only the first letter and then alternating caps and whatever. That's helps
okay.
you
Yeah.
repeat whatever that password is without actually having to like memorize, because I don't
You
memorize.
didn't memorize it. You constructed it again by following some rules.
Yes.
I do passwords a similar way. I construct, like, I don't memorize any of my passwords, but I have a way to construct the password if I remember what website I'm going to. So
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
some like
I like that
passcode that tells you what that was that you made, but not actually not enough for them to do it, but enough for you to do it.
But then, like, how quickly until AI can like predict the pattern that we use based on the website that
I
we're
already
visiting,
did.
and like
I'm probably
patterns.
already
If
hacked.
they've
Honestly.
hacked one of your, or they bought your credentials for something
You
else.
have to
on
know
there.
every address I ever lived at, but you could do it.
Yeah. Anyway, there are practical things that you can do, even if you don't have a department or a budget, but certainly there are companies and resources out there. Leah mentioned your local FBI's field office.
you
They'll
need
also
to.
post about cases that have happened, common scams that are going on, advice on how to avoid them. The other thing is to know some cybersecurity companies or consultants in your industry.
Like rules.
It does
And
not hurt
exercise.
you to know them, even if you don't have budget to pay them, because the time will come and you want to have somebody to call. So I mentioned this earlier. We at least were able to call Ashley right away because we know somebody that, knows about this stuff. So as a closing remark, Ashley and Leah, if you guys could give the audience a pitch or not a pitch, but just like what exactly you guys do and can help with, and how people can reach out to your companies if they want to do business with you, or just to kind of start to network with you guys and your colleagues so that they at least have some cybersecurity folks in their network, even if they're not, adjacent to that area.
And if you don't have a cybersecurity partner and you're not going to get one, you are screwed.
Yeah, and Scott mentions there's a lot of free resources at NIST.
Yes.
And I will say, like, every year, a lot of these great resources are pointed out to me, but this is such a low priority in my job that I don't go out and look at websites to look at cybersecurity information. I more so when it comes up, when I talk to people, when I see opportunities to hear content, I'm just not one of those people that goes to the websites to like try to do my own research on things that aren't immediately relevant to me in this sense.
Yeah, one thing I'd suggest is looking at your workflow and seeing where can you fit things in. So like if you're big on LinkedIn, start following some of the things like NIST or CISA, and you'll see that pop up in your feed some of the relevant things.
Well, there you go. So yeah, following them on LinkedIn versus trying to go to their website and look for information.
Yeah, make
you
it
start
come to
seeing
you.
stories, and you're like, oh my god.
Follow these people on Instagram, like wherever you're scrolling. Okay, that's true. Like
The hackers
really
are getting better, but the
curate
defenders are
our
getting
feed,
better.
whatever our feeds are, news feeds, our Apple News, or whatever. Throw some cybersecurity stuff in there. That's a great idea.
But yeah, go find some people like Ashley and Leah, because if you don't,
which is why
you're not going to be okay.
I want to give you guys, and Leah, I'll let you go first, and then Ashley, you can close it as the official sponsor of this panel. You can close it with the pitch for Wolf Evolution. So Leah, can you tell us a bit about NextLink Labs and what you want people to know you guys for and come to you for?
Yeah, so NextLink Labs, we focus on 3 different aspects. So custom software development, DevSecOps, and cybersecurity. So when you're building applications and you want to integrate security into them, you want to have better workflows. We look at all of those things. But for cybersecurity in particular, we like to take a holistic look at what your organization is doing and help you identify those gaps in your program and fill them in using frameworks, using things that are specific to your organization and the data that you handle and the workflows that you have. So we look at things that happen prior to an incident. If you've had an incident, we can look at the risk that you accepted that might have led to the incident, and really focus on how can we improve the cybersecurity posture moving forward. How can we give those assurances both to your company, to any board of supervisors that might be over, or to your clients too? So how do we make your clients aware of the efforts that you're putting into your cybersecurity programs?
Very cool. Thank you. And I assume people can find you at, is it nextlinklabs.com?
Yep.
And follow you guys on LinkedIn.
Yep.
And I know you and a couple of your other colleagues are regular speakers at industry conferences like Automate. Are there any more places that we should expect to see you guys in the near future?
Automate and FabTech are our big go-tos.
Okay.
So,
what about the ICS Village of DEF CON? I want to go hit that up next year.
It's amazing if you can go. So years ago, I was senior staff for DEF CON when it was still growing out the villages. They're growing insanely now, but they have some really cool stuff. The ICS Village is awesome. They do car hacking that's really cool to see. Some of the things that we may not be exposed to in like everyday life, to get a chance to go and see the thought process.
Everyone has a flipper and they're like taking your credit cards and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Very cool. And then Ashley, will you tell us a bit about what you do? I know you've mentioned a little bit about what you do with your clients, but kind of what's your focus and what types of companies should be coming to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so our focus is assessments and consulting. So, our assessment side, we're getting, down to the nitty gritty, actually looking at devices, looking for particular vulnerabilities, looking at architecture, those types of things, and really addressing those security gaps, and giving those recommendations and remediations of how you could secure, the devices in your environment. On the consulting side, we kind of go a little bit more high level. So that's where we start looking at your policies and your overall security program and look for gaps there. Because a lot of times, a lot of people are like, well, I need an assessment done. Well, maybe you actually need a consultation first. Maybe we need to look at a higher level and see, how you have these vulnerabilities in your environment, but how did they get there? Is it because you have gaps in your policies or gaps in your procedures? And that may be something that it needs to be addressed first before you're actually going in and picking out these, little one-off vulnerabilities. So that's kind of the primary of what we do. And very, very soon, probably like the beginning of next year, we will also be doing training.
Very cool.
So we'll have kind of various different aspects of training. So training for the defensive side, training for if you want to learn how to break things in OT like I do, then we'll train you to do that. And then generalized training for OT. So a lot of companies, when you go and you get that generic cybersecurity training, right? The IT minded and everything. I've never seen that in OT, where you're actually applying those cybersecurity principles, but for the operators. Those kind
I
of
want
things.
operations like like the chief operating officer should get like the big training and then roll it out to everybody else.
Exactly. So yeah, this is like I'm in a control room and my mouse starts moving on its own. What do I do? That kind of training, and for that training, not only are we going to have the generic, but we're also going to work with companies to customize it for their environments. So that'll be something that's upcoming early next year as well.
Wow, I feel like the pressure to include, I want to include access to trainings the 2 days prior to OT SCADACon. So for some of you folks to be able to put on a class that somebody could add to their OT SCADACon registration. I've been saying that. With that, okay, let's close out. I'm gonna extend it just a little bit longer if anybody's even still here, but this is recorded, so that's also fine. Allie, you have some training that you're working on. Do you want to talk about it and then sign off?
Yeah, sure.
We can talk about it later, but
I think I've always asked like what people wanted to be trained on, and and I don't know for whatever reason, like people would rather know more about, or at least when I did the survey, they wanted to know about programming and SCADA. But what I'm actually good at is design and hardware. So I like, some programmers love both. Some programmers love one or the other. I have never been the strongest programmer because I already told you it's not real programming anyway. But I feel really good about like the way that I develop a control panel, because I had to, as someone who's not trained in electrical at all, like I took one electrical class and I learned Ohm's law. I don't know shit, like, but I know how to create an entire control panel from scratch because I learned from other people's drawings and then from building it myself and doing it wrong and wiring it wrong and then being like, oh, I have to do it like this. And so I did learn. So I know all of the like layman's terms as to why certain things are there. Like, why do you have a power supply? Why do you have a control transformer? How do you pick out, like, to make this a UL panel? How would you do that? So I'm designing a class where I break down all the things that someone like me, who's not an electrical engineer, specifically not an electrical engineer, to be able to create a schematic that worked on DC and AC voltages. So I want to tell you enough rules, colors, sizing of conductors based on NEC, like enough shit in your class that you, without an engineering degree, could design a control panel. Even if you are an engineer, that's great, but that's not what this is for. So I want to create a class for why is all that shit in there? And same thing with like the size of the enclosure. Does it need a cooling system or a heating system? Like, how do you figure out how to size that? How do you figure out how many IO cards you need? How do you do all the motor circuit shit? So I'm making a class for how do you design a control panel from scratch.
All right. Well, stay tuned for more information on that. If you're interested in the class, I think we have a wait list going. Or if we don't have a wait list going, Emily, we need a wait list for the class going. I think we'll have some info coming out about it in our newsletter next week. And then volleying it, we also are going to be, I'm not going to give you the floor though, Courtney, because, well, I should. But yeah, just tell us robot training and then you sign off. Okay, the challenge is to you. I'm no longer talking.
I have a robot and I need to use it. I'll bring it to you and train you. The end.
Then I'll break it afterwards.
We're only going to get more and more into hacking robots. Eventually, robots are going to get hacked, and we're going to be like, oh my God, the robot did something bad.
Yeah,
robots
so
already can be hacked.
Let's keep talking to each other, learning from each other. Make friends with Scott. If you don't know Scott McNeil yet, he knows a lot. He's got a lot of great resources. honestly, at any of our events, like the people that are in the audience are just as knowledgeable as we are on different topics.
Yeah.
So the opportunity to
We're a
network
good company with the
with
even
the people that are here,
Yeah.
please do that. And then share what you learn or whatever with the rest of the world. So thank you guys for being here. Happy Halloween, and we'll see you around soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks.